And I watched as he opened the sixth seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair, and the whole moon turned blood red. Revelation 6:12. Welcome back, folks. Welcome back to the Friday Night Prepper Pre-Party Show. I hope everybody is having a good night. We are going to talk about the chatter that is picking up in some corners of the preparedness community about the April 8th eclipse. I'm going to do my best to give you my thoughts on this, but also to be respectful of other people who have different interpretations of all this. And as always, I welcome feedback and chatter. You can do that in the chat room, or you can in the chat if you're watching this live, or in comments afterwards. Please be kind to the moderators. That's one of the rules here we keep on the channel. Don't be racist or sexist. Don't be, you can throw shade at me. That's fine. I really don't mind. In fact, I like a little bit of pushback and a little bit of engagement there. You can give me a thumbs down if you don't like my videos. That's okay. Actually helps me out in the algorithm. And if you get anything of value out of this, please consider giving me a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. As always, I recommend that you check down in the description down below, which I just updated right before we went live. We have some discount codes in there for some products that I think preparedness-minded people might enjoy. That being said, I only have one or two more announcements. Please remember that for 2024, one of my goals is to shout out and support more first responder owned businesses and veteran owned businesses. So if you're a first responder or a veteran and you have a small business and you would like a shout out, please reach out to me at businesswithsarge@gmail.com. And if you are a content creator in the preparedness or survival or bushcraft or homesteading community, and you would like to talk about a possible collaboration, you can also email me at businesswithsarge@gmail.com. I love working with other channels and supporting other channels and helping you all to meet my audience. And I'm certainly happy to come over to other people's channels as well, as long as we, mostly get along. And again, that really boils down to don't be racist or sexist, and we'll probably get along. Okay, we can disagree. That's fine. All right, so we're talking about the April 8th eclipse. Now, I really hadn't been given this much of a second thought because, now, for full disclosure, for those who are brand new to my channel, I am Christian, and but I also am a man of science as well. So I kind of straddle that line as a lot of modern day Christians do. I operate in the field of healthcare, and I believe in modern medicine, but also natural medicine, and I believe in the power of prayer as well. So it's just important for you to know my own biases and whatnot as we go into this discussion. And by the way, let me say hi to a couple of people here in chat. I see people are already popping in. Thank you so much, and thank you to the early birds. I saw that Uncle Al popped in, said he's got to handle something, so no problem there, Uncle Al. I appreciate you stopping in to say hi. Sassy Gal Prepping, Kentucky Survivalist, the Crag, Cold War Prepper. Who am I missing here? Lazarus Long and Maccabeus, good to see you, my friend. Virginia Bushcrafter, James, good to see you. All right, I think I got everybody that chimed in. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you so much. Thanks for joining. All right, so recently I came across this, and I really hadn't been thinking too much about this. The 2017 eclipse passed through my city, and unfortunately, it was a pretty rainy day that day. I did get to see it, but through clouds, so I didn't get the full effect. Certainly nothing like this AI-generated image that you see behind me. Eclipses have been going on, since the beginning of the earth, really, before man existed here. I did tell you that I was a man of both science and faith, right? So you're gonna hear me kind of say things along both spectrums here. But eclipses have been going on for a very, very long time. Let's just go with that for now. So why are people getting hyped up about this particular eclipse? Well, it's not just this particular eclipse. It turns out that as I did my research this week for doing this video, this is a thing that actually happens just about every time where there's a predicted eclipse, and certainly going back to before science could predict eclipses with great accuracy. You wouldn't necessarily know that one was going to happen. And so you can imagine, these things aren't like super common. Like you may only, in your area of the world, you may only see one or two in your lifetime. Maybe if you're lucky, you get to see a few more. But thinking back to like when we think lifespans were probably, 35, 40, maybe 50 people. If somebody was 50 years old, they would be considered old, very old, a few hundred years ago. And there wouldn't be like science models of this, but maybe there was some accounts of it in written history and things like that. And so all of a sudden, if nobody was expecting this, and all of a sudden the sky looks something like this behind you, that would be quite terrifying. And I certainly would have tried to put myself in those shoes, would have assumed like, well, this is it, like the sky is falling, or we've pissed off God, or something like that, and now we're all going to die. That's a reasonable thought given what we would have known prior to modern science being able to explain what this was, and information being able to be disseminated after the printing press to widespread masses, right? After the printing press, that would have been it would have been a very scary thing to see. So it's not new, first of all. Let me read a couple other quotes from scripture here too, because this seems to be the April 8th thing seems to be tying into scripture for a lot of people, and we're going to try to tie that in as best as I can. I'm not a theologian, but I'll do my best with this. So Isaiah 13:10 says, "For the stars of heaven and their constellations will not flash forth their light. The sun will be dark when it rises, and the moon will not shed its light." Joel 2:31 says, "The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord comes." Matthew 24:29 says, "Immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky and the heavenly bodies will be shaken." And of course, I already read Revelation 6:12. I watched as he opened the Sorry, I'm having a hard time with this verse. I watched as he opened the sixth seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair, and the whole moon turned blood red. So the April 8th stuff seems to really be heavily tied into other things from the book of Revelations. And I watched a few videos on this from theologians and people who are more of a biblical scholar than me, trying to make some sense of this for myself for this video. And a lot of it comes from the fact that people are concerned that this crossed with the 2017 eclipse. I see you guys got some comments and stuff like that. If you have questions, you want to throw stuff in, definitely throw it in there. I'm going to come back to chat in just a second. The 2017 eclipse, which also crossed over the United States, it creates a crisscross pattern across the United States, which you saw in my thumbnail, somewhere around Kentucky, I believe. Now go back into symbolism of what an X was. X, literally, when you hear X marks the spot, X would be like, this is where things are going to happen, or in some cases, the X literally, in some languages, ancient languages, X literally translates to the mark. Okay, now you're starting to see, right? So those of you who are familiar with the book of Revelations, where like that might start to kind of raise some bells, of course, right? But there's more. But wait, there's more. There's some information going out there that these two paths cross 7 cities that are named Salem. Now, Salem, the translation of the word Salem literally means peace. And so you could try to think of that as, peace will be blacked out or eradicated, right? But when you do a little bit of fact checking on this, it isn't actually 7 cities that are named Salem. It's 6. There's 6 in the path. Now, 7, of course, has a lot of religious and holy significance for us Christians. It's considered a holy number. And 6, which we're going to come to that again later on, 6 has also has some significance for being it's considered like an irregular number in Christian traditions. We're going to come back to the 6. So first of all, there's some discrepancy about what's being put out there. It does not cross 7 cities named Salem, and it's important to note that the X pattern happens again and again and again and again, as far back as we can tell, with science's ability to study the patterns of these these solar eclipses, right? So that X pattern is not new. First of all, it is not new, and it is not the first time, in fact, that it's passed over the United States, and it won't be the last time that it passes over the United States. Okay, so as far as the X pattern being of significance, again, if you're watching this, you're certainly free to disagree. For me, knowing that that's happened repeatedly throughout history, I don't really have a lot of buy-in that like that X pattern means anything more than that's just how solar eclipses happen. They go this way, and then 7 years later, and there's a 7-year pattern to this, by the way. 7 years later, they pass like that, and it makes a intersection which will look like an X. Okay. Let me pause there. Well, let me hit one more point, and then I'm going to pause, and I'm going to get to your chat. There's also some information that some people are putting out there that that this X crosses over Babylon. Well, Babylon is not the United States. Babylon is actually part of Iraq. Historically, that's Babylon. And yes, there is. I watched another video that says there is a period, I think, in the next 50 or 100 years where that X will pass over Babylon. We certainly will expect that these kind of theories are going to come back into play at that point, right? So let's clarify a couple things there. There's not 7 cities named Salem that this passes through, and Babylon is not the United States. And that X pattern that happens every 7 years has happened many, many, many times before. And I'm sure that we're not the first generation to say, hey, this is interesting, right? Or I doubt that. I doubt that we're the first generation to say that. All right, let me check your chat. I got a couple things here I want to hit on. I got to scroll back a little bit. Now, if I'm missing parts of this prophecy that you guys know, definitely throw it in comments, because I did my best to dig into this, but there was stuff that was above my pay grade, above my academic level for sure. There's some numerology and stuff like that comes into this as well. So if I missed something, please go ahead and chat, and I'll bring it up. We'll talk about it. Okay. Wow, I'm going to scroll back quite a bit here. Okay. Let's see. Ask her everything. Oh, James, yeah, man, I just saw that. Absolutely. I will keep you in my prayers, brother. Keep your mom in my prayers. And I've got a couple friends right now also, since we're talking about this, and you guys know I don't push my faith a lot, but it's definitely part of this stream. I've got a couple friends who are fighting cancer right now. I don't want to name them on the stream, but if you could keep them in your prayers, everybody, I appreciate that as well. Cancer sucks. Lost my mom to cancer. Cancer sucks. All right, here if you're in the totality area, you will be able to see. Okay, so I did see something about this too, that there's is there a comet that's actually going to be visible during the total eclipse? I did see something about that. I did not get a chance to dive deeper into that one. So if you know, Pentucky, if you know a little bit more, or anybody else, if you know a little bit more, throw that up there, and we'll kind of open it up for chat. Dave Simmons, welcome. Appreciate you. Hey, Steve, thanks for joining. Appreciate you. So I should bring this up since you mentioned that. So when we had the eclipse pass through my area in 2017, and you probably already know this if you do live in one of these areas, you can't. It's really not recommended to look directly at the eclipse with your naked eye. You should there's special glasses that will be available. You can also use like welding glass and things like that. Please do your research. Look up the safe way to do this. We had special glasses that were, a lot of places were giving them out for free when it came through here. So we had those. I think we bought like a meal, and they came with the meal or something like that when they were doing it around here. And it can be pretty dangerous to look. You actually can burn your eye, damage your vision. So that's the other thing, right? So thank you, Pentucky. Definitely natural disasters appear to be kicking up, and I will say that here as well. Floods are worse here in my city than people who've lived. I can only go back as far as the people I talk to, but people who've lived here their entire lives have told me that the floods are worse than they've ever seen before. I spoke to somebody today from California who says that the wildfires in the last 5 years have been worse than they can remember. So definitely that stuff is concerning. I don't know that this is I will say I don't know that this is the only time in human history or in the Earth's history, let's say it that way, where climate change has kicked up a huge knot. We know there's been ice ages. We know the Earth has gone through cycles, right? So again, I'm not getting into a debate here about climate change or anything like that. I've disclosed my personal opinion on this stuff before. Personally, I think that there is cycles to climate change, and yes, I also think that humans have probably escalated that. But I'm not. That's not what this is about tonight. I don't want to get into an argument about it. But yeah, natural disasters definitely seem to be kicking up quite a bit, and that's some people are tying that into this. But let me just say that I think that every generation going back at least 2,000 years, as a Christian, I'll talk about since the birth of Christ, every generation has thought they were the last. And I know I speak to a lot of people in the preparedness community, and they say, look how bad things are now. These are signs that the end is imminent. Things are bad. Things are bad. But there's been much, much worse times in human history. I would say World War II is a great example not that long ago of that. I would say in the United States, the Great Depression, things were significantly worse than they are right now. I would say the Civil War in the United States, things were significantly worse than they are right now. I would say the plagues of the Middle Ages were significantly worse than anything we're seeing right now, right? So I think there's a lot of things you could say like, yeah, things are really bad right now, and they are. Just to validate, yeah, they are. But I don't think this is the worst that humanity has endured. In fact, there's a period of time, I forget what they call it, where humanity had almost gone extinct. They think that the numbers had gone down to only a couple 100,000 humans at one point. It was like I think it was around the Little Ice Age, or if somebody wants to fact check that or look it up, and we can bring it up for discussion. But I don't think this is the worst that we've endured, and I don't think it's the worst that we are going to endure either. Personally, just my opinion. Black Saturday, the day the volcanic ash blocked out the sun. Alice in Silverland says 6 is the number of man because of carbon. Can you explain that a little bit more? I'm not familiar with that. All right. Same with Nineveh theory. Thank you, Maccabees. Same with Nineveh theory. Nineveh, Missouri is on the list, but Nineveh is in the north part near me. Pinatubo, is that how you say that? Mount Pinatubo? Yeah, so it's you're not going to see too many of them, right? And a lot of people here were really bummed out about the 2017 eclipse because we didn't get a good viewing here in my city because it was overcast. Yes, we're going to talk about that next. We're to a city where they meditate like with their third eye, and they call it. I want to talk about the traveling part next. Okay. How many eclipses happen in its lifetime? I don't know the answer to that. I will tell you that I am of the belief that humans have been around somewhere between 200,000 and 300,000. Modern day humans, somewhere between 200,000 and 300,000 years old. Now, there are other people who have different beliefs about that. It's definitely up for debate still. It's not been finalized by science. There's missing information. But my personal belief, based on what I read, is that modern humans, have been around between 200,000 and 300,000 years. And modern civilization, maybe 14,000 years or so, when you'd start seeing like trade and cooperative settlements and movements more towards agriculture, things like that. I would say about 14,000 years ago. I agree with that, Vanessa Kitty. I think that there's been species that I do believe that there were dinosaurs. I know that there are some people who debate that. I do believe that there were species that were here much, much longer than we were. Yeah, we got you in prayer, brother. We got you in prayer. Do not look at the sun during an eclipse. We're without protective eye. We were designed to look at the eclipse, real ones, and not a knockoff or something. Yeah, it's the yes. Let me go back to this one first. 100% agree, Kentucky. I think that's part of the problem is that the forests are not being cleared, and that's forest fires will happen naturally. 100% agree with that. So the flooding here is there's two schools of thought. Number one, the ocean does seem to be rising. Number two, they're overbuilding here. They're overbuilding in my city. They're developing they're developing concrete and asphalt where it's wetlands, and then we have so many people moving to my city. It's one of the fastest growing cities in the country that people don't know when they move here that you're buying a house that was built on a swamp, and then a year later after you buy it, it's the whole thing's flooded and you've got massive damage and your insurance is going to go through the roof. We have some really unscrupulous development going on in my city, and that's a huge part of why the flooding is worse here. Inflation is ramping up. It's for sure bad. Not the worst this country's ever seen, but it's bad. Yep, I agree. Yeah, and there is a cyclical effect to that. So when I was in university, we studied systems theory. So really briefly, because I could spend a whole hour on this. Systems theory is all elements of a system are interconnected and they respond to each other. So my neighborhood is a system, my household is a system. My neighborhood is a system, my city is a system, my state is a system, the United States is a system, and the world is a system. And everything that we do affects other elements of that system. And so little things like if it floods on the street next to me, that's going to push wildlife into my area. That's an example of how systems theory works. And so wildlife in my area may affect things that are around here, like maybe they start eating people's gardens and stuff like that, or they start killing off some of the cats in our neighborhood and stuff like that. So also that's how systems theory works. Everything that we do affects something else in the system. Yes, that's true, Vanessa. So Maccabeus says the other theory is the last time two eclipses X'd, there was 1811 New Madrid quakes happened. What I saw today, and I'll see if I can find it again later and pin it in the comments, was that it certainly sounded like it's more common than that. That it maybe in the Western Hemisphere, um, but it seems like it's that X pattern happens every 7 years from what I saw. Yeah, I agree with that too, Vanessa Kitty, that they're not managing it right. Right. There's better things that could be done. Yep. You got it. You got it. All right. So, oh, I'm sorry, a couple more. Huge factor there for sure. And we don't have any control over the solar weather is absolutely true. Hey, David Edwards, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you. Oh man, you wouldn't believe the unscrupulous development here in my city. It's bad. It's bad. I mean, I really, I should do a video on that, but honestly, like if I start showing neighborhoods and naming names, I'm probably going to get sued. Yeah, if you get anything of value out of tonight's chat, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you don't like me, it's okay. Give me a thumbs down. I appreciate the feedback either way. Let's go on to this. So the next part, do I think there's reason to worry? A little bit, but not for the reasons that I was just talking. Not I don't think personally, and maybe you do, and it's okay. but I don't personally think that this is Armageddon. I don't personally think that this is the apocalypse. What I do think you should be aware of, if you live in the path of the eclipse, because we saw this in Charleston, is you will get tourism spike like you've never seen before. And all the hotels are going to be full, and you're going to have a lot of people showing up that don't know how to drive your streets. You're going to have maybe a little bit of difficulty for a few days before and after getting gasoline for your vehicle, or diesel if you use diesel. Might see a little bit of shortages in the grocery stores, things like that. There might be hard to get a seat at a restaurant, things like that. All of that stuff's workable. Be sensible. Could somebody, a bad actor, take advantage of this to, if they know there's like a big viewing spot where a lot of people are going to be gathered, to cause trouble? Yeah, we know that. We know that that can happen. That's unfortunately, there's a lot of evil people in the world, right? That's a factor. So use your senses. If you go out into a large group, keep an eye on your paths of exit. Make sure everybody with you knows like where is your fallback point if you have to separate, where you're going to meet. And just be sensible like you would if you were going to any large gathering, right? So I hope and pray nothing like that is a factor, but just use your common sense. Everything that we would normally do, your situational awareness as a prepper, everything that we would normally do, just do that. As far as if you live in these cities, it's not a bad idea to go ahead and fill up your tank a couple days before April 8th, right? It's not going to be like a huge thing like after a hurricane like we get here, where you might not be able to get gas for a week. It's probably going to be a couple days. At least that's what we saw here in 2017. Get your groceries for the week a couple days before then, right? Just be smart. If you don't have to go out and do that stuff, don't plan to go out to eat if you don't need to, right? Just like think a little bit differently, that for like maybe April 7th, 8th, and 9th, your city might be a little crowded. Your town might be a little bit crowded, right? That's all. That's all I think you really need to do. And if you go into a large crowded place, just do like you would if you were going to a concert or a big outdoor event. Just keep your head on a swivel. Be smart. If this crowd feels rowdy or something feels off, trust your judgment, right? Make sure everybody that you're with has a way to communicate with each other, knows the fallback point and that kind of stuff. That's it. If you follow that stuff, we shouldn't have, I'm not anticipating any major problems here. Yeah, and the National Guard will probably be staged around some of especially these big cities. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Like as preppers, we tend to better to be prepared than scared. I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it, right? So there's nothing wrong with that, with getting a little bit extra. When we had the 2017 eclipse here, it wasn't as big of a deal as they thought it was going to be, but it was crowded. The streets, the traffic was heavier. There were certain places, certain parks were closed because they were overcrowded, things like that. You had to have reservations to get into certain public parks that were normally just open to the public. Yeah, and you get some, James says you might get some petty crimes. Sure, whenever there's large crowds, that could happen. It could happen. Yeah, small crime wave. That's right. Why? So all the times that the eclipses have happened hasn't been the end of the world, right? So personally, I don't think this is it either. But if you do, I'm not trying to judge you or anything like that. I'm just trying. Really, what I'm trying to do here is debunk some fear, because I saw these posts come up on some of the prepper forums, and I saw people starting to get into fear mode. Let's come back to that at the very end. Fear mode, okay? Vanessa Kitty, I've actually seen that posted in a couple places. I don't think it's gonna be like a large presence, you know. Mostly I've seen it on like posts on social media and stuff like that. They could have been faked. I don't know. They looked legit to me. Absolutely. Don't look directly at it without the right eye protection. That's it right there. Acer. Treat it as if like there was a Taylor Swift concert coming to your city. You're going to be flooded with a lot of people. Yeah, just fact check that. I think welding masks are okay if they're the darkened out. Yeah, I think that they have to be darkened out. See, I don't weld. That's how you can tell. I think those are okay. Yeah, there are. So here's the really weird thing. We could have this total coincidence where we could have an earthquake at the path of this, and it's going to be weird if something like that happens. Do I personally think it's going to happen at that exact moment in time? No, I don't. Can I promise you that? No, I can't promise you that. Yeah, that's a good suggestion there, Robert. Check some of the eyeglass optometrist offices near you. Really dark plastic lens, kind of man, through. They did the ones that we had did look like that. Oh, thank you for mentioning that, James. So when we had the 2017 eclipse here in our city, thank you for mentioning that. I almost forgot. There were people selling, scam artists selling ones that weren't safe for looking at an eclipse. And our city had done a really good job of warning people. And there was a special stamp on there that was like, this has been certified by, such and such. I probably have my eclipse glasses somewhere. I think I threw them in a box with like, the Y2K stuff. Um, but I remember that now that you said that there was some scam artists and they warned people about that to make sure that you've got the real thing. Scam artists everywhere, always, right? Mama always told me not to look directly into the eyes of the sun. Yes, right there. Uh, so yeah, so that's what it was, the ISO certification. So people are even faking the certification now. Please be careful, folks. If you're watching the eclipse, make sure you've got legit eye protection. It's not worth it to screw around with your eyes. All right. I'm getting close to winding this one down. So if you have any other comments or anything you think we didn't cover here, let me know. But just to recap briefly, the the 7 years pattern for these solar eclipses has gone on for a very long time. The X pattern, as far as I could tell from what I read, has repeated over and over and over again. There is, just to debunk this, there's not 6 cities, there's not 7 cities named Salem in the path of this. There's 6. Um, you could take that as a foreboding sign, though, too. And United States is not Babylon. So, um, again, make up your own mind. I always encourage people to do your own due diligent research. I'm just here to give you my thoughts on it. My show is my channel is mostly for entertainment purposes only, and we try to give people some helpful tips for preparedness, for wilderness survival, things like that. So I hope this was helpful for you. I am going to wind this one down with a couple last little thoughts. So the yes, I actually went to school in Salem, Mass. By the way, if you get a chance to go there, really cool city, really fun. Um, that's where the witch trials happened, the Salem witch trials. Yeah, thank you for that, Lee. Appreciate that. Yeah, be careful where you get those glasses, folks. Don't screw around with your vision. All right, so 2 last thoughts on this. Number 1, there's a lot of whenever we get to any kind of apocalyptic prophecies, there's a lot of talk about the book of Revelations. My personal opinion, and this is shared by not all, but many theologians and many historians, again, not all. So I'm not saying I have all the answers. My personal opinion is that the book of Revelations refers to the reign of Nero. Now, during the reign of Nero, and the reason I think that is because there's a practice called there was a practice called gematria. I think I'm pronouncing that right, gematria. And in gematria, letters are assigned numerical values. It was a way to speak in code. And 666, the number of the beast, was translated to literally Nero. Okay. During the time of Nero, Christians were being prosecuted, thrown to the lions, crucified. It certainly would have seemed like the end of days if you were a Christian living in those times. And speaking of Nero, would have been in any kind of negative manner would have been a prosecutable offense. So anything that would have been referencing him in a negative manner would have had to have been written in code, or you were taking a big chance that if it fell into the wrong hands, you not only were you going to be killed, but the person receiving it was going to be killed. The Book of Revelations is very interesting. Whether you're a Christian or not, is definitely an interesting read. You should check it out. It's believed to be written by John of Patmos. Many people believe that was John the disciple, John the beloved, one of the John the apostle. I'm sorry, not John the disciple, John the apostle, John the beloved, one of the 12 apostles. So would have been very close to Christ, and many Christians were in hiding at that time. Now, there is some disagreement about that. Some historians believe that it was written after Nero was already dead. So can do your own due diligent research. I'm just sharing my thoughts on this. I don't personally believe that Revelations is referring to our generation. It's still good knowledge. It's still interesting, and it still gives you some perspective of Christian persecution during that time. What it would have been like to think that the end was imminent. But again, I don't have all the answers, folks. I'm not an expert. I'm not trying to portray that or anything like that. Again, just giving you my opinion. Let me go to chat one more time, see if anybody wants to respond to that, and then I'm going to give you my closing thoughts. You guys know I always like to end with something positive. Well, the vampires suck your blood during an eclipse. They don't need an eclipse. They'll suck your blood anyways. Hey, good night, Penteki. Appreciate you. Thank you. Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah, it's just a little precaution, right? And it's not something that really costs you anything extra. You're gonna have to fill your gas tank at some point, anyways. So we run into that here during hurricanes. Like there'll be a run on gas, and if you're not proactive and ahead of it, you can find yourself not without gas. Yeah, they make good stuff, man. That's cool. Good. I'm glad you like it. I've got a couple other kits myself. I really like Rhino Rescue. Yes, and that is part of my research. Thank you for mentioning that too, Vanessa Kitty. As part of my research, getting ready for this stream this week, they talked about that like the Aztecs believed that an eclipse was the sign of imminent doom. The Mayans believed this. Even Vikings had had a belief that this was that an eclipse was a bad omen. Probably Egyptians, probably Sumerians, so any older cultures, again, if you didn't know what it was and all of a sudden you see something like behind me, it would be terrifying. I mean, the sun is literally life, right? Our life on this planet doesn't exist without the sun. It's like the sun in symbology and in literalness pushes away the darkness, right? So there's, the sun is generally associated by most cultures to be positive and good, a sign of goodness, right? So to have the sun blacked out and you don't know why or what's happening would have been straight up terrifying. The Navajo have an end time prediction very parallel to Christianity. Excellent. Thank you, Lee. Yeah, by the way, Lee hits on some really interesting stuff. He knows his history really good. Definitely make sure you're checking out Lee's book club live streams. Really good stuff on there. Unfortunately for me, I have to catch it on the replay, but I do try to catch as many of those as I can. All right, folks. Let me start to end this one out. Appreciate everybody. First of all, I want to end with something positive. Appreciate you entertaining my thoughts on this. Again, it's not pretending that I'm an expert or I know anything. I feel safe for April 8th. I'm not worried at all. My main purpose of doing this was to hopefully ease some fears for some people. But regarding fear, I told you I was going to circle back to this. Regarding fear, my personal belief on whether or not, and as a Christian, as a man of science, as a person, as a husband, as a stepfather, is I am not afraid of the end of days. Okay. And I don't think you need to be as well, as long as you are leading a good life, doing good things, live your life every day as if it was going to be your last, right? And I know that's kind of impossible. Like, we all make mistakes. I lose my temper. I make 10 mistakes a day, maybe 30. I don't know. So we can't all get it right all the time, but do the best you can to be comfortable with the decisions that you make every day. Be kind to people. Take time to listen to other people. Take time to say nice things to people. Compliment a stranger. Help people when you can. I know you can't always. I can't always either. Do what you can. Be merciful, be graceful, grant grace to people, grant forgiveness. There's somebody in your life. We all have somebody in our life that we're still angry with. I still have people that I'm angry with. People I haven't talked to in years. Work on letting go of that anger. Maybe you did something wrong to somebody else. If you can, try to reach out to them. Take accountability for it. Ask for forgiveness. They don't have to forgive you. It's okay. Do it anyways, right? Live your life as if this was your last day, and you'll never fear that last day. Okay. I appreciate you guys. This audience means the world to me. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Keep planting your seeds. Keep stacking your silver. This is Prepping with Sarge.